Good evening. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and thank you for joining me on this edition of Technology Access Television. Well, we're starting off this new year of 2014, and we are all excited. This is the time where business plans and strategies get into full gear, and new entrepreneurs and innovative activities are sprouting up all over. Those that are already in business are determining how to take their business to the next level and hopefully are putting in place their strategies that will do just that. I always love talking to entrepreneurs about their business, and today I've got an entrepreneur that I have a great deal of admiration for because he came from my field. He came from software and technology and said, hey, you know what? I can do that, but I can do some other stuff too. And he started a business that's making a world of difference in transportation. And hey, I'm not going to tell his story. I'm going to let him tell his story. My friend is Travis Latham, and his business is Fellowship Fleet, one of the outstanding new limo and transportation companies in the city of Chicago that's just doing some phenomenal things. Travis, thank you for being here.
You're more than welcome.
Well, I had an opportunity to meet you. Both of us were involved in a special business curriculum at the Small Business Administration, the E200 program. And I was so impressed. You had one of the greatest, your marketing materials were all together, your business plan was all sure. How did you go from, and then I found out you were an IT guy. Mm-hmm. How did you go from IT to founding your transportation services company?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, IT, because I think our relationship even goes
back a little before
E200, the BDPA.
Okay,
yeah.
That's right.
So I got my undergrad degree in computer science, mm-hmm. And I started off working for companies like Baxter Healthcare, Medline Industries. I did some work for several internet startup companies doing web services type software development, a lot of pre-sales work. Mm-hmm. But along the way, I knew I wanted to own a business. Mm-hmm. At first, I was actually going to buy a funeral home.
Okay.
And what happened in the funeral home endeavor for me, I just realized at that point in time it was too expensive. Mm-hmm. Number one, to buy a brick and mortar funeral home. Number two, to go away and go to mortuary school, which would have been 2.5 years. And I wanted to continue working at the same time while doing it, and it just was too expensive at the time. Mm-hmm. Plus, the funeral home community in Chicago is very tight-knit. It's almost generational. Right. So it would have taken some time to break into that society, so
and that industry is going through a lot of change with the corporate buyouts and a lot of those types of things. So that's an industry in flux that's putting those old companies under a lot of pressure because of pricing and everything that these corporations are doing.
I would agree. And in addition to that, I just felt like the barrier of entry was too high for the funeral business. All right. However, while doing the due diligence on the funeral business, I saw that a lot of funeral homes were outsourcing to car services, either because they didn't have enough vehicles to service their customers. Some funeral homes were having 17, 20 funerals in a day, and they didn't have enough vehicles or equipment to service their customers, or they were charging customers $10,000, $15,000 and showing up in a 1980 limousine, so they would outsource to bring in newer equipment. Mm-hmm. Or they were the smaller funeral services that didn't have any vehicles at all, so they would outsource to car services.
So you saw that market opportunity for car services to serve that particular industry and also do the other things that they do.
I did. So what we did was what I did, and I say I as we as the company, but what we did was we bought a hearse and a limousine. Okay. Because I saw that was my entry into owning or starting a real business. Okay. Not just a mom and pop shop, but a real business. So we did. And what I found out is that when I got into the business, there was just more opportunities for transportation outside of the funeral industry. Mm-hmm. There was corporate travel, special events, tourism. The opportunities were endless.
Now, when you first started, and how many years ago did you first start?
It was actually back in 2005.
2005. Did you take the time to put out a plan and begin to think about, okay, here are my customers, here's a market I'm trying to serve, here's how big that market is, here's who the competition is? Did you go through all that SWOT analysis when you started?
We did, but we did it only for servicing the funeral industry. All right. Which in my mind, looking back on it, was a shortfall. Okay. Because if I had have taken a broader approach, I think our entrance into the business would have been a lot different. Okay. What we did was we polled a lot of funeral directors and funeral homes and said, hey, if we start this service, what are the chances of you using our fleet
Okay.
for your business?
All right.
And the response was overwhelmingly yes. We need
Okay.
more. We always need
And
help.
did that turn out to be the case when you first came with those products? As you got up and running, did they take you up and actually throw business your way?
It did. But what I found is that the business wasn't consistent enough. Meaning the revenue flow wasn't enough in my mind to take it to that next level.
Okay.
So what we did was over time, and after really starting to manage our business by the numbers, we started to look at other avenues, and that was corporate business.
Okay.
So I took what I learned from undergrad and working in IT in corporate America. We started going after corporations and responding to RFPs, we're starting to RFIs, and then we started to seeing the fruition of real business.
Now, when we think about the business landscape in Chicago, no matter what industry you think about getting in, there's always somebody there before you.
Yes.
And they have a tight grip on things. And those of us growing up in Chicago, we could think of, Continental Transportation and some of these other companies have been around seemingly forever.
Yes.
Have their political contacts and all those kinds of things. And so it's been very difficult sometimes for people to break into these industries. How did you get over that hurdle to break into the corporate landscape? What are some of the things that gave you a way into that very tightly controlled mix?
That's a great question. So I would say it was probably a number of avenues that allowed us to break into those entities. Number one, believe it or not, it was the economy.
Okay.
When the economy started really tanking, let's say in 08 and 09, a lot of companies just literally went out of business.
Wow.
And so that left a void for the people who still needed those services.
Okay.
In addition, because we are a minority-owned business, we had the opportunity to participate in minority sort of designated opportunities. And then in addition to that—
Now, was that at the corporate level or at the city, county, state level?
more so at the corporate level. We didn't really start— well, we've always attempted to participate at the city and county and state level early on, but it wasn't, in my mind, with great effort.
So then you got certified with some place like the Chicago Minority Business Development Council.
Correct.
And then you went to the trade fair.
Correct.
And then you put your card and marketing materials out in front of some of those corporate guys, and you actually got some business.
Well, started building relationships,
Okay.
which ultimately led to business.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
So responding to RFPs and things of that nature. And then I think what also helped us too is the notion of attrition. So when you talk about the relationships that people may have had over years, those individuals passed on or moved on to other positions,
Okay.
which led to new faces,
All right.
which led to new opportunities, to open minds to other.
Okay. So so there was a changing of the guard.
Oh, yes.
There was out with the old and in with the new, and you were
Correct.
kind of right place, right time.
Correct.
To create some of these new relationships that gave you a chance to sprout up.
Correct.
And so some even though you were a new business, some of these local corporate structures gave you a shot, gave you a chance to do some business.
Yes, well, I think it's all about the presentation as well. So, even though we were, or still, in my mind, I think we're still a new business. We haven't met that $1 million range, so we're still, in my
Right.
mind, still on the upswing.
All right.
So, having said that, the presentation of our business was grand.
All right.
It was 5-star.
Okay.
And of course, the service was 5-star, even though we
Right.
were fairly new.
Okay.
And I think a lot of entities saw the presentation and trusted us based on the presentation.
Okay. All right. So you came with it. You came with something, just like I saw when I was in the E200 class.
Correct.
You had top flight materials, multimedia materials, website. Everything was done. So no one could say that when they saw the presentation that this wasn't a first class operation. And then you followed that up with first class service.
Correct.
So that when they saw the cars and the drivers and the everything, it was exactly the way they thought it would be. And they said, well, hey, nothing wrong with this. It's first class.
Correct. And then I think the backfill of that whole process was building the relationships, because the relationship building is essential in our business.
Okay. Now, you kind of jumped in this industry, came in with a different notion. Once you got knee deep in it, it's always a Pandora's box. It's what you thought it was going to be, and it's stuff you didn't know anything about.
Correct.
Now, has the business itself, the private car, the limousine, airport transportation, corporate. Are there some sea changes going on in that arena as well right now? Is it a very different landscape for private transportation than it was when you started?
Absolutely. And
Wow.
I think, number one, the stretch limousine model is gone.
Okay.
No one's riding in a stretch limousine anymore, unless it's a wedding or a funeral.
High school graduation.
Yeah, and no one asked for it. Even when they say limo, they mean a sedan, like a Lincoln Town car. So that whole model has changed.
Wow. And why is that? What's that?
I think because of the economy, once again, individuals don't want to be seen in something that's considered flashy.
Okay, all right.
So a stretch limousine is flashy. And then two, in our core competency, which is the corporate model, it's usually one or two individuals traveling.
Okay.
So they don't want to drive in a stretch limousine when they could ride in something a little more smaller, compact, that's a little more personable, that's a lot less flashy, in like a sedan, like a town car, or an SUV.
Okay, all right. Well, it certainly seems like, from the president on down, that the Suburbans have become the de facto standard. But I think you've talked a lot about the fact that it's even changes going on next to that. And so we're going to see some different vehicles start to emerge in the private car landscape. Now, since you did have a IT background, how does that play off in the new world of private car? Are people looking at online booking and reservations or mobile apps or some of these types of things? Have you started to pull out some of your old bag of tricks and put that into your new business model?
Yeah, I think part of our strategy, so we have a twofold strategy that we're embracing moving forward. Number one, we're moving into a sales organization.
Okay.
So what we're going to be is a sales organization that sells customer service. We just happen to provide the customer service with transportation.
Wow, wow.
So that's our focus, but it will have a technology backfill associated with it. So when you talk about the smartphone apps, that's something that we're going to embrace more heavily. A search engine optimization as well, which is something that we embraced initially, but the IT, I guess, head was me. So, I can't be the IT head, the manager, the HR director, the head of sales. It was all too much. So what I'm going to do now is kind of offset that IT infrastructure or initiative to someone who's more capable, more current, more dare I say it, maverick.
Okay.
So that we stay cutting edge with the IT side.
I really, really like the way you made that statement about we're a customer service organization, a sales organization that happens to deliver our value through the transportation area.
Right.
But we're putting our innovation on attention to detail, the relationship, understanding the client, and I think that's so right on, because oftentimes people get caught up, and businesses have changed.
Yeah.
And if you think you're in the the apparel business, or you think you're in the cell phone business or something, if you're not reinventing that whole paradigm, you're all of a sudden going to wonder, well, what happened to my customers, and how these other guys run off with the whole party, because they want to, and we all see where people get very frustrated with the lack of customer service. The lack. How come these people don't know who I am? How come these people act like, every time I talk to them, it's like I'm starting from square one? The customers that step up, companies that step up and say, hey, Mr. Montgomery, oh, I see you want to, hey, we've already got this done because you've done this for the last 15 times, so we figured you want to do it again. Is that okay with you? You're like, oh, yeah, right on. Hey, I can dig it. And so I'm really glad to hear an entrepreneur really strategically recognize that it's not about the cars. It's about the relationships. It's about understanding the customer. It's about having that kind of information and then leveraging. Now, in terms of your staff and your employees and people that are in the cars, have you been, like you said, you can't be behind the wheel and in the office and on the phone and at the terminal. What's been the challenge with getting talent to buy into the kind of vision to deliver the service quality that you have in mind?
So let me just start off by saying the hardest part about our business is definitely managing the human capital. It's not getting loans for vehicles. It's not winning a contract. It's not picking someone up from the airport, it's managing people.
Wow.
So what I found is that we have to really focus on the training portion, and it has to be ongoing. And then we have to tie some incentives to their compensation to the customer service portion of the business.
That's right. They have to be accountable.
And that's something, to be frank with you, that I think we took for granted early on. I just expected everyone to be pleasant and nice and customer service oriented, and that has not been the case.
I heard an interesting story the other day. I teach a marketing class for small business administration through SCORE, and I do it once a month, and it's really interesting. I didn't plan on this, but I started to have to come up with examples to put out in front of the class of success stories so they would understand what I was talking about. And so because I have, usually my class is at least half women, I said, well, I have to have some examples they understand. And it was so funny because I would say, how many of you all heard of Zappos? And invariably the women would know what I was talking about, and the guys would look around, you know, what's Zappos?
Right.
And I said, okay, what's business is Zappos really in? And they said, well, they sell shoes. I said, but what business are you really in? When can you order shoes? Well, you can order shoes anytime you want to. 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. What's their return policy? Oh, you can return them anytime you feel like it. 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. Oh, you can take a year to return them. And the guys were looking around like, what kind of business model is that? The business model is all about customer service.
Right.
And I heard a story the other day that said that in Zappos, they are so fanatical about customer service that when people apply and are approved and get in the customer service department, they go to those individuals with a bribe saying, we'll pay you $10,000 to go to another department. Because the only people they want in customer service are people that are so fanatical and committed that they won't even take a bribe to go back to the sales floor, to go back into distribution or accounting or something else. That the people in customer service want to be in customer service. And it is a ongoing, continuous process, constantly focusing on what can we do better, how can we change, how can we keep it up to the standard. And so you as an entrepreneur, you're even seeing at your level where you probably have less than 50 employees, but you still have to be concerned every day about making that message and people buying in that message. And you really hit the nail on the head because you said part of their compensation is going to be their commitment to delivering that kind of quality to the customer. That's amazing.
And it's at every level, from the reservationist to the driver to the salespeople to myself. Everybody has to be customer service oriented. Everyone essentially has to be a salesperson.
Okay, so Fellowship Fleet has been in business now how many years?
Well, 2005 is when we started. We really didn't go into business until 2006.
Okay, all right.
So it's been about almost 8 years now.
Okay, so that's a pretty good time. So now you're at that point where you're about to go into another level of activity. You made it past the 3 to 5 years of are they still going to be around? You're still around. You have agreed customers. You got people that you had probably as clients for 2 or 3 years now.
Correct.
So now you're ready to kick it up to that next level of success. And you want to bust past, whatever revenue goals that you have for that company. What are some of the things that are going to be the difference-making ways that you bust into that new category this coming year?
Well, I think number one for us, busting into, when you talk about that different category, it's having a core set of customers that use us on a frequent basis, and not just individual customers. I mean corporations, where we are the de facto, the go-to
standard
transportation entity that they use. So for us, having sole sourced contracts is important.
Okay.
So we were privy to win, or we were blessed in my mind to win a contract with the city of Chicago handling transportation for special events. That is an example of us going to that next level.
Okay. Now you've also become a real spokesperson for this industry. You participate on some national organizations. You're part of a national group. You're the treasurer for an organization that looks at this industry. And then you're also doing some things to open the door. How did you get involved with this thing at Olive Harvey College? And talk about that for a little bit.
That's great. So you mentioned a couple of things. So we'll talk about Olive Harvey first. So I am an adjunct instructor at Olive Harvey, where I teach potential taxi and limo drivers how to be a chauffeur.
Okay.
It goes from everything from professional development to rules and regulations, to accessibility, learning how to handle the disabled, and then also rules and regulations, accessibility, and geography.
Okay.
Which has a lot to do with Chicago.
Okay. And are people excited and wanting to get in this industry? Is this a doorway into a very interesting and profitable profession?
This is, and what I'm advocating is anyone and everyone, please come.
Okay.
Because it's very small in terms of financial investment, but it's a long-term.
People can do pretty well.
Yes, and it's something that you can even do on the side if you want. So if you have a business or if you work a regular job, if you want to drive a taxi or a limo on the side, you can do that. You have the credentials and the education to do so.
And so by coming out to Olive Harvey and in that new transportation and logistics program that they're putting together, they can enroll in your class.
Yes.
And be on their way to getting certified so that they can participate in this industry.
Absolutely.
All
absolutely.
right.
And when I teach the class, I teach it as though the student is a business owner.
Oh.
Because you're not just a driver, you're not just a chauffeur. When you're behind the wheel, you are the business.
That's correct.
The customer looks at you as the face of the business.
All right.
So I teach those business principles, mainly customer service, to those potential chauffeurs.
And in the role that you have within the industry, some of the industry organizations that you're a part of, why is that important?
Well, it's important, number one, to stay abreast of what's happening in the industry. Number two, it's important to give input from my perspective, whether it's a small business owner, whether it's a minority, whether it's someone local on the street. It's good to give that input. So that's why I participate. And then I have the ability to take the information that I learn and disseminate it to everyone that I know.
So what can we, in 2014, what will be some of the benchmarks of fellowship fleet that will be put into place in this new year? What are some of the things that you're going to put into practice with your business that will you know, take you to the kind of level of success you want to have, not only this year, but the next couple of years?
So number one, we will have some stated sales goals, which is something we didn't do before.
All right.
We actually have hired on some sales people, individuals, which is something that we had not done before. I was the only salesperson, which is, it's amazing because I just say it's amazing.
Okay.
We need more feet on the ground.
All right.
Have a larger footprint. Number two, we will have, in my mind, some stated revenue growth that exceeds anything that we had did in the past.
Okay.
And then number three, we will do more with regards to advertising and marketing. So we've done email blasts in the past, but we have not done text messaging. We haven't did anything with, to a great degree, with social media, and all of those things will take part in what we do.
All right, very, very good.
And then in addition to that, some of the organizations that you mentioned before, like the Minority Limousine Operators, the Illinois Limousine Association, we will be stronger supporters of those organizations as well.
Okay. And then on the technology side, because again, people are so much involved with mobility has become a just critical to, you know, companies are no longer hung up on their corporate offices.
Yep.
People are encouraged to be mobile, to work fluid, to have pop-up offices here or there. There's a new concept in offices where they have what they call hoteling, where people can be any one of 5 locations in the city and call and make a reservation and go plug in and have everything that they need, from conference room to catering to coffee to what have you. And if that is more amenable to the customer's requirements, you know, they say, hey, stay in the street. You know, you have your laptop, you have your tablet, you have your smartphone. If you need an office space, we've got one downtown, we've got one by the airport, we've got one in Schaumburg. So you don't spend your time, you know, transporting back to, you know, the corporate powwow. You're out engaged. So now, are you baking some of that awareness into your strategy to say, hey, we make mobility possible?
Yes.
You can be where you want to be, when you want to be, in the style and time that you need to be there.
Yeah, in my mind, accessibility is the key. So that's number one, having a smartphone app so that when someone wants to utilize our services, it's a click of a button. Number two, when you're in our vehicle, having Wi-Fi access.
Oh, okay.
We will also begin to have tablets in each of our vehicles so that if you don't have your laptop or your tablet, we provide one for
Wow,
you.
okay.
So those are keys in my mind for us to give our customers that accessibility, which makes them more productive. In addition to that, we have GPS systems in all of our vehicles, so that if a customer wants to track where their vehicle is at any point in time, we will provide them with a link to let them see where the vehicle is.
Now, since you started your business kind of when the economy was really in some tough shape. I mean, you look at when you started and then up to from 2005 to 2009, you've seen some really devastating economic. Are you starting as a small business owner to see some improvement that are companies starting to engage more, make some bigger commitments? Their executives are traveling. Are you seeing an uptick that encourages you that 2014 is going to be an important economic turning point for this economy?
I am, and it's a blessing. I keep using the word blessing, but I definitely am seeing that there is more utilization of vehicles out there, and there are more people calling about services, more people inquiring about services, for sure. And they're not just kicking tires and searching for the best price. They're looking for good services at this point, which is a great.
And you've also told me that because of your tight relationship with your clients, some people have asked you to coordinate their transportation needs in DC, or New York, or San Francisco. So it's not just about your cars operating in this area, but you managing transportation services to have the level of service that you're used to providing people. People want that service wherever they are, and you're able to do that through your alliances and relationships and things like that.
They do, and that's another key, and I failed to mention this before, that's another key that's going to take us to that next level. It's through those affiliate relationships. So let's say if you wanted to go from here to Atlanta, we would pick you at your house in Chicago, take you to O'Hare Midway Airport. When you arrive in Atlanta, we would have a vehicle in Atlanta waiting for you, take you to your hotel or to your business meeting or wherever you need to go. If you need additional services in Atlanta, we would have a vehicle take you there. And then when you come back, we would have the vehicle take you to the Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta. Then when you arrive in Chicago, we would have a vehicle waiting for you in Chicago. And it's all with one credit card payment, one point of contact, which is us, one dispatch, which is us. If you have an issue with your driver, your car, you need to locate your driver, your car, you're calling one phone number, which is us, one website, which is ours. And that leads into that usability and accessibility.
Well, you have a great strategy and, more important, a great execution. And that's why Fellowship Fleet is a company here in Chicago that is one to be on the lookout for. But also Travis Latham is finding a way to give back and encouraging new participants to get a handle on this industry, because there is growth in transportation. Transportation and logistics is just exploding, and it's always been an area that Chicago plays central to. So I'm delighted to see a young, up-and-coming entrepreneur begin to make his way in this arena. Hey, I hope you're making your way in 2014, coming up with your plans, your strategies, and doing just like my friend Travis Latham is doing, making a difference, creating jobs and economic opportunity in this city we call Chicago. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and you've been watching another edition of Innovation and Entrepreneurship on Technology Access Television. We'll see you next time.